couldn't hold that smile much longer. Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dawg, and this is the Dawg Pound. Oh man, a lot happening in the car business, folks. If you're doing anything else, put it down. Pay attention. We're going to be talking about the manufacturers finally making the big move. I've been talking about this for more than a decade. Speeches, blogs, magazine articles. I've been telling you, I hate to say I told you so because what I told you is not pleasant, but we're going to talk about all that in just a minute, starting out with my good friend, the mad Russian himself, uh, sleeper cell in the United States fixing U.S. elections, my friend Max Zanan.
Hey, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. I tell you, always good to see you, Max. And from the Cavalli Group, the head of operations, my good friend Geno Walsh.
How are we doing today?
Man, hey, what did you do there, Gino? Get your little siren to announce you.
An easy button over here.
Special effect.
And we always talk about one of the most brilliant women in the car business. And I've changed that to one of the most brilliant persons in the car business. From next level digital marketing, my friend Jennifer Briggs.
Hey, Jim, I was going to say, I feel like I've been giving these boys a run for their money for about 20 years. So,
at least 20 years. Next level digital marketing LLC, right?
Well, it's next level solutions.
Okay.
Right. We've talked about it because you don't like the solutions, but I like the dot solutions because we do a lot of consulting from an operations and executive standpoint. It just happens to tie to digital because everything in the world now is connected online. So
everything's connected. And from Minneapolis, why are you in Minneapolis, Sean?
I wonder on days like today as well, sir.
9 inches of snow headed your way, Minneapolis. Dealer teamwork. My friend Sean Stapleton. How you doing, big guy?
Good. Thank you to have me on. I love the topic, and you got great speakers as always. Go Dawg Pound.
Go Dawg Pound. Better than go Brandon, Go Dawg Pound. Max, we talked about the news. The news is that Farley just announced to the stockholders that number one, he's going to really clamp down on dealers that are charging over MSRP. He's going to withhold prime inventory Broncos and Lightnings and anything else that's selling if dealers continue to sell for substantial amounts over MSRP. What you think?
So it's extremely unfair towards dealers, right? Because the laws of supply and demand apply to everybody. And if Ford cannot fulfill their obligations and provide dealers with the necessary inventory, right, at the very minimum, like Brian Benstock said last week on the show, right, they should raise the MSRP and raise the spread between invoice and MSRP, right, to reflect supply and demand laws, right? That's number one. Number two, I think he's setting the ground, knowing that dealers will continue charging over sticker because it's their right to do so. The MSRP acronym, right? The S stands for suggested, not required. And he's setting the ground for the fact that when they do go direct to consumer, right, they're going to look like good guys and say, hey, look, we only charge MSRP, not a penny over, and the dealer is the bad guy. So I hope that not just Ford dealers, but all dealers out there will wake up and understand that this is happening and this will continue to happen with other OEMs, all thanks to Tesla, right? And dealers, basically, you snooze, you lose, and they snoozed on Tesla, right? And now every manufacturer, right, is going to use Tesla as the precedent and say that for some reason, if it's not an internal combustion engine, it's an electrical car, franchise laws don't apply to it. To me, the car is a device that takes you from point A into point B, and it doesn't matter how you power it, right? So the franchise laws should be sacred, and they're being violated, in the open. And this is coming from the CEO of Ford, right? You can't do any better than that, right? And now all others will follow, right? So the dominoes are going to fall, and dealers really need to wake up, get together, and I know Brian was saying that, we should work with the OEMs, but, best defense is offense. How about a class action lawsuit? That's where I'm going to stop.
Well, we started rattling attorneys now, so, and I think there will be. My good friend Lenny Bellavia, one of the top car lawyers in the country, he's going to make a field day out of this. Geno, what's your thoughts?
Wow. So a lot to unpack there, but you're trying to tell me the same people who can't figure out chips are going to go ahead and sell cars to people. The same people who can't get a boat to come from Europe to the United States without catching on fire are going to sell cars to those same people. And they're going to have to deal with those same people when they make their mistakes on titling, and they make their mistakes because they make them, because I'm the one that's in between a lot of them many times, are going to backdoor us. The only way that they can backdoor us is if we do something stupid, and
I haven't even dropped the other shoe yet about the separate brand. We're still talking about charging over MSRP.
Well, the MSRP thing is, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. You've heard that a million times. So if we want to move customers to the disruptors, and people are doing it, whether you like it or not. I'm here in beautiful Lakeland, Florida, and the number 2 market share vehicle in Lakeland, Florida, behind Lexus at 16% market share was Tesla. There's not one Tesla kiosk at any of the malls here in Polk County. This is Polk County. These are the data. This is the real information. So they have the cars, they have the chips, they're supplying it to customers. This isn't on the IHG side of it. So, I mean, you do what you feel is best for your organization, but remember there's always unintended consequences. When you have, some of these folks that are in positions that are making, general manager money and above, you're going to ruin those folks in long term. When you have a sales manager making $40,000-$50,000, general sales managers making $75,000 a month.
It's going to be a rude awakening.
We all know what the end of this is. It's like subprime mortgage crisis type.
It's going to crash. It's going to crash hard. But let's not dwell on that subject. Jennifer, what's your thought?
Well, it is. Well, wait.
Wait. There's more.
You're talking about the poor dealer that has to charge over MSRP to their customers, $10,000, $15,000 over, and then the same sales managers are like posting stuff on Facebook and social media about all their beautiful watches and their beautiful cars and their beautiful Ferragamo shoes and all that kind of stuff, which is cool. It's great, but the customers are seeing that, right? You know what I mean? Like our customers are watching, like, and they're thinking, okay, these guys got the leverage right now. But when we get the leverage, it's going to be a completely different story. So that's why I say, like, there's a fine line in between it that we have to make sure that we're.
Okay, so Farley says he's going to withhold prime merchandise.
But I think that Geno's point is valid at the fact that we've got to make sure, are we playing a short game or a long game? But as far as charging MSRP, and I've not been quiet about this before, the manufacturer has been shrinking our margins as dealers for years. Our cost as dealers has gone up and MSRP has been static. So if we want to talk about who's price gouging who here, maybe if they had actually adjusted that along the ways, we wouldn't see dealers right now with no inventory having to do this.
A lot of the dealers asked for the invoice to shrink between MSRP and invoice, and they wanted the money to go in the back. Like a lot of our,
well, some brands do. I know Audi in particular, VW, a lot of that stuff is going to be showing up below the line. But as far as and especially since we're talking today about Ford and General Motors in particular, and I think there's some unique deviation, at least in lip service right now today, from the two heads of those companies. But ultimately, they're making us out to be the bad guy, but we don't have enough volume, or most dealers, if they're not stocking up on the used side of the house so they can keep their unit counts up, we don't have the new car volume to be able to keep the lights on in a lot of circumstances. We all know this, Jim. You've said it for so many years.
Last week, if you recall, I used the 1976 Eldorado Brome as an example.
You did, yeah.
And the 1976 Eldorado Brome, 25 feet long, couldn't see the hood on it in the fog, opera windows, I mean, beautiful. That car was a $13,000 car with a $9,000 MSRP invoice. $9,000 cost, $13,000 MSRP. 20 years later, 1996, an Eldorado Baritz, I think that was the last year they built them, was $52,000 with a $2,000 markup.
Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting. We are setting ourselves up to have a whole nother stereotype to overcome. I talk about it with the sales teams all the time. I'm like, listen, it's not you, but we created a really bad relationship for our reputation for ourselves in the 80s and 90s. And now you have to overcome it. And we're getting back into that cycle again. But I don't think it's fair to put the blame 100% on dealers. But
no,
again,
the blame is not 100% on dealers.
Well, it feels like Ford sure as heck is making it.
Let me jump in with Sean for a minute. We'll get back I want to give everybody their initial opening shot.
There's an easy way to fix this, right? And you see it all the time. Add accessories. Make the vehicle not a commodity. Make it a unique brand. I have many, many, many stores that are selling at MSRP. I have others that added products to the vehicle to sell it above MSRP. Leveling kits, tires, rims, etc.
$10,000 pinstripes.
Well, that's what happens. Max said it correct. It's supply and demand, right? It's supply and demand. But look at, if you really, really want a new Bronco, right, you got to go out and pay some extra money. Now, if you order that or pre-order that car, you can lock in your price. And most of the time, most dealers are going to honor that. And that's good business.
Sean, I think that's where Ford gets a little upset. And he froze because he's up in Minneapolis. But I think these ordered cars are showing up. And I've heard it from other people, not in our brands, but I've had people call me and they're like, hey, man, I ordered this car. I showed up to the dealership. It's a Honda Odyssey. And they want me to pay $5,000 over sticker for a car I ordered like 3 months ago. What's up with that?
That's bad business. If you make an agreement, that's good business, right?
You make an agreement, you make an agreement.
Yeah, you make an agreement, you honor your word. The pendulum will swing, right? And the other problem is we're not talking about where's the long term. Geno, you and I both know we sell somebody for $10,000 over sticker. Where's that car going to be 4 years from now? Still underwater, right? So when's your next shot at that customer? Dealers got to be careful. It's a fine balance, right? But if you don't do it right, you could be in trouble. Your brand could be in trouble, and you're going to, restrict your current customers from coming back and buying again. Okay,
now I've got a lot of people in the sidebars. A lot of questions coming in. We got a big audience right now. There's a lot of things happening. Let me point something out to you. Electric vehicles. There is no mandate for electric vehicles. Remember that. Remember, the public isn't clamoring for electric vehicles. There's an elite number of consumers that on the high end are looking for the electric vehicles, but this is all politicians and manufacturers. And I said at least 10 years ago that the purpose of electric vehicles was to replace the entire fleet. I mean, we have a finite number of customers. Now everybody's going to have to buy a new car after 2030. Everybody's going to have a new car. I mean, all the manufacturers say, oh, shit, we're going to sell everybody a car. They've all got to buy them.
It sounds like cell phones.
Doesn't it?
Right? Yeah. Just make the tech obsolete. And again, I know, Jim, you keep saying 2030 on every show. I don't know from an infrastructure standpoint, again, like we had talked about before, if that's going to be possible. But it is like a cell phone, to Geno's point. If you can no longer, and it seems very unrealistic that we will have that infrastructure and the power grid to support that by 2032. That was your date, right?
Yep.
Well, that's President Biden's date, not mine.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening, especially in states where like Geno, you're in Texas, it's privatized grid. How is the government?
I'm actually in Florida, but
you're in Florida. I don't know why I was thinking you're in Texas because it's warm and it's cold here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, just like perfect example. Today is 2222. You know what went offline today, right? 3G. 3G's offline today. It's offline today. So
we lost 3G. Oh shit.
Well, they're going to do the same. Like it's all kind of coordinated together, right? But you're asking me, somebody who's bought 2 EVs in a row. So I love my electric vehicle. I love not having to go to the gas pump. So I see people post stuff on Facebook all the time.
Well, like I said, there's a number of weirdos that'll buy those.
That's me.
Yeah, and see, it will work for me.
I'm definitely a weirdo.
We drive too far. We tow too many things. We drive in the winter. Try driving to northern Minnesota and use the heater at the same time. You get to pick mileage or heat, one or the other.
Well, Sean, the first iPhone only had 8 gigabytes.
Yeah.
So like we got to stop thinking about the ICE cars that won't be able to do what they're going to do.
It will eventually.
Well, let's get back to the original subject of the broadcast. It started out Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, is talking to the stockholders, not to the dealers, not to the consumers, the stockholders. My friend Ariel Velasquez put me onto this, and he's talking to the stockholders. Ariel made a great post on LinkedIn about this stockholders meeting and what Farley said to the stockholders. And he's talking about splitting off 2 brands, EV and ICE, internal combustion engines. And let's face it, the franchise laws do not protect EVs. They only protect internal combustion engines.
Is he having the EV cars be built by non-unionized workers?
That's a good question, Geno.
Well, it's a whole new game. Send it south, build them with non-unionized workers.
That sounds like a conversation I have with the stockholders. Is like, hey, we're going to be building these new cars without the legacy expenses.
Well, like today, I mean, Porsche is going to have an IPO, and Porsche is going to be a separate brand with its own stock. I mean, all of a sudden, all the manufacturers are maneuvering. General Motors is invested heavily in China. All of a sudden, who makes the chips, by the way? And all of a sudden, we're seeing all the manufacturers maneuvering to spin off a separate brand and eliminate dealers. And I've been saying this, and I was almost crucified 3 months ago for posting a blog about this. Remember,
Jim? Who's going to fix them?
Oh yeah.
Who's going to fix the cars, Jim? Who's going to fix them?
Well, that's the Right to Repair Act. The Right to Repair Act conveniently came around about the same time. Now, the Right to Repair Act allows private shops to do warranty work and be paid by the manufacturers.
You know how expensive it is to have an EV set up in your shop?
Yep.
It's not cheap.
What if the manufacturers funded the private shops?
They could barely fund it.
Who cares about EVs?
Max is in.
No, guys, forget the EVs. The right to repair applies to internal combustion cars, right? And they're literally, 267 million of those internal combustion cars on the road, right? As opposed to like 2 electric cars, right? So that Geno bought. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the right to repair will affect the internal combustion vehicles much more so than electric cars. But also, listen, guys, I want to make another point, right? There are aspirational goals that everybody has, including OEMs, and including politicians, and maybe going electric is an aspirational goal, whether it's 2030 or 2040, right? But then there's hard economic reality, right? And the hard economic reality is that the electricity prices are so high that it makes sense to fill up your car with gas. That's number one. And this is especially true in Europe, where, for example, in Norway, it costs 45 euros to charge a Tesla. Right? So another example is Germany, that's super gung-ho on going electric, right? And they wanted to go electric by 2030, 100%. They estimated that they needed to build 2,000 charging stations a week in order to accomplish that goal. Yesterday, they woke up, they came out of the ether, and they realized that they have been installing 225 charging stations a week instead of 2,000. So as of yesterday, the 2030 goalpost has been moved to probably 2050. Right? So also don't forget, if the country, and I don't want to bring politics into this, but if the country flips red, right, you can forget about electrical cars for at least 4 to 8 years. Right? This is just a hard reality. It might be hard to swallow, for tree huggers, right? But it's a fact of life. People in Idaho and Montana and Texas.
Thank God Bobbie's not on this week.
She is our resident tree hugger.
Right. People, are not interested in these cars. These electrical cars do not have a support of the consumer.
Well, I think to Max's point, that's a want vehicle, not a need vehicle. And I think it's awesome for the consumers who are out there living their dream, right? Getting the vehicles that they want. But the majority of Americans are need buyers. They don't get to pick whatever they want, right? They are, and especially right now with inventory being the way that it is, I know we're talking in the future, but we've got to realize that. And I think that's the other part that the OEMs or whomever, the lobbyists are forgetting. They're forgetting the average American consumer who can't afford a $70,000 electric vehicle.
Jennifer, what about people that live in apartments? What about people that park on the street? What about people that can't get a 220 power line in? I know plenty of dealers that were told to upgrade their circuit, and their local city said, we can't afford to bring you that power.
Right.
Put a generator in, burn gas, and generate your own power. I know in northern Minnesota, I can't get a 220 line, so I have to use a 110. So I'm there stranded because I can't get the charging to work. And I live in a nice area. This isn't the sticks. It gets harder the further you go out.
It's the bougie sticks.
The bougie stick.
Well, how many EVs do you guys think sold last year?
Oh, gosh, the number. I can't remember the exact number.
453,000.
453,000. Their expectation is to be between 800,000 and 1 million EVs this year. And then that's basically going to double by 2025. So it's a sliver, but the sliver is getting a little bit bigger, guys. So
well, it definitely will. But if we don't to Sean's point, if we don't, as a country or an industry, start prepping and planning, it's fine to put a number and a date on the board and say that's where we want to be.
Yeah,
but until we can support that, and it was funny, I know somebody made some quippy comment last week, but about me talking about powering an entire manufacturing facility with wind power. But for those of you who may not know, I actually was in the oil and gas industry before the car business. So I do happen to know a little bit about what we're talking about. I ran a petrochemical manufacturing facility powered solely on wind power.
She can hold a grudge, right? She can hold a grudge.
I'm just saying.
She's still holding a grudge from last week.
Come on. I don't know what it was. I'm just prefacing here. If anybody wants to get a political in the side thing, it's not about politics. It's that I have the experience in both industries.
Yeah.
Let's go to the manufacturers spinning off EVs as a separate brand, and all of a sudden they don't need the dealers anymore. They don't need the unions anymore. What's going to happen, Sean?
Well, I think, I don't quote me on this, but I think Tesla's model is something like
don't quote you unless you're on public broadcast.
Like 24 to 25% cheaper. Isn't Tesla's selling model about 24, 25% cheaper by not having certain requirements like franchise dealers? But they're giving something else up, right? They're giving up what I think is the ability to buy anywhere, anytime. I think it's going to be a hybrid model. I think Tesla's got a lead out there. They're trying to make it work. And some of these OEMs are seeing these evaluations going, how do I cash in? We've seen this before, whether it be Cadillac with GM, Hummer breaking off. Maybe it's Bronco, maybe it's Stellantis with standalone Jeep stores, Alpha. I mean, we've seen this music before. The question is, what's it going to do to the current franchise dealers and how well they're going to interpret it? Because imagine owning a Ford store today and being told 24 months from now you can't sell EVs, but they could do the same thing about a Mustang, right?
What if the Bronco is a separate franchise?
I think it's coming. I think the Bronco will absolutely be a separate franchise in the future.
It's not like we haven't seen it already. I mean, 5-6 years ago, Hyundai popped Genesis out on its own. And although I know all of my Hyundai stores also got a Genesis Point, which was a remodel with a new dang door.
I said that Genesis was going to be a separate brand and separate requirements. And all the Hyundai dealers. Oh no, they're going to leave it in the Hyundai showrooms. No, they're not.
Oh, for goodness sakes, no, they can't.
BMW and Mini.
Yeah,
right? I don't think that worked.
So, but the fact of the matter is with EV, so if they're going to pop some of these things out, are they really going to pull it, or would they offer it to the existing franchise? We don't have that model. Every other brand that's been popped out as its own, at least for all the dealers I've worked with, they've had a chance to take that point. Is anybody on the audience? Have you not gotten a Genesis Point if you had a Hyundai store?
But Jennifer, I think the difference is that, let's say with Genesis, right? They did it because they're jealous of Lexus, right?
Listen, I just couldn't charge anybody to be Hyundai.
Right? Now there's a new hot girl in town, right? And that's Tesla. Nobody wants to be like Lexus anymore. They want to be like Tesla. And if you want to be like Tesla, you got to break the franchise laws.
You break the franchise laws. And I see that coming. And I was saying this years ago. And Jennifer can tell you, you ever see the original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff?
Yeah.
When they were when the villagers had torches and pitchforks and shit, and they were chasing the monster up the hill. You know, they were chasing me up the hill. You know, dealers, that ain't going to happen. And guess what? I said the manufacturers are going to try to defeat the franchise laws. I've been saying that for 20 years. And guess, Sean, you know, I've been in speeches, everything else.
Yep.
So, and Farley, I love Jim Farley. I think Jim Farley is one of the brightest guys in the business, but I'm sort of, this takes me in a different direction with him because it looks like that they are absolutely promising the stockholders they're going to spin off electric vehicles as a separate franchise, as a separate company. Dealers will have dealers, and I don't think dealers are in that picture in any way, shape, or form because he mentions Tesla in the speech. Now, Ariel Velasquez, Ariel Velasquez, good friend of mine, by the way. Ariel wrote the article on LinkedIn that spurred me to look up this stockholder meeting.
Jim, where are they going to find the people to do this? Like, where are they going to find the people? They can't even.
The manufacturers don't know how to sell cars. They never have known how to sell cars.
But they can't even give us chips, and we're worried about them spinning off the electric vehicles. We can't even find salespeople.
Who said we're worried about it? I'm predicting a major fustercluck.
Didn't they make record profits this year? Look, I got no problem with people trying to advance models and change things. That's called evolution, right? But one thing is, now's not a good time. Dip your toe in the water. But the reason why you sell cars is dealers do a great job. If the OEMs want to go a direct consumer model, that's totally different. That's a different cost structure. The reason why Tesla can sell them at the price is they don't have that additional cost in it. Plus, the incentives you get for driving an EV vehicle.
Well,
things change a lot.
They're getting all those credits from the non-electric manufacturers. They're selling them and making billions of dollars that way. Those will go away here shortly.
Yep.
And by the way, the vendors are in on the plot. There are vendors that are in on the plot. The vendors have been working on feverishly at total transactional online digital retail, and they've got it down to a pat now. They can do it. It's not as profitable as conventional retail, but they're close. So all of a sudden, the vendors are in on the plot. And as Max says, they're all going to go one price.
Right. And Geno, to answer your question, where they're going to do this, they don't need to find people. They need to poach a few logistic guys from Amazon. Right? They don't need salespeople to sell electric cars.
Humans.
I think Jennifer
make a deal and submit paperwork.
Yeah.
They gotta be able to do that stuff.
They have to have somebody deliver the car.
they're gonna wait a second. They're gonna wait. They're gonna poach the best and brightest that are in retail car dealerships now. They're gonna poach the.
I think they will. I don't think they will, and I'll tell you why. Because look at the educational profile of a finance director. Most of these guys never even finished high school, right? Who are they going to poach? Let's be honest, guys. This guy can figure out, right?
Oh, they're hung up on degrees. They're hung up on academia.
Right. They can figure out how to build an algorithm that's going to buy a 650, a 550, a 450, right? If you have a Pulse, you're going to be driving. Right, because you're going to be backed by a tremendous amount of money. They're going to be buying their own paper. I mean,
I don't buy it because you know what year Shop Click Drive came out, Max?
Don't
I sold the first Chevrolet in the country on Shop Click Drive in 2000, and it's forever ago. So if GM could have figured that out, why wouldn't they have figured it out by now?
Well, because now the real pressure is on because Tesla figured it out.
Okay, now Nick Adams just posted what I've got on the screen right now. Yeah. And anyway,
we all know Jennifer does not get good gas mileage. The only person who gets worse is probably Sean Stapleton.
I got a big carbon footprint.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're an Escalade sort of guy, right?
I mean, the guy's so cold he's got his fan on. I mean, this guy definitely puts out the carbon.
Well.
Electric fan, that's an electric fan.
I saw an article recently that if we did switch to electric by 2030, the entire power grid of the United States would collapse.
That's right.
I mean,
all the damage that it does to the environment. Right.
You can't turn all your air conditioners on in California today. You can't turn all the heaters on in Texas today. So you go ahead and add cars to the thing, but not just cars. What about trucks, right? Semis, which is, the next thing, right? If you start to add that, ships, boats, airplanes, where does it stop? We don't have the infrastructure to support it. And Max and others made great points. We're not getting to the level where it's going to be justifiable. They'll push it back, just like EPA standards, but eventually it'll start to overcome. Because superior technology and supply and demand always win.
Well, they're cutting their costs. They're trying to built to order cars. Now, built to order cars is the first clusterfuck.
Ooh. You said the real word.
Did I say the word? Oh my gosh!
It's a good thing Bobbie's not on the show today.
Oh my God. Oh, I actually said the word. Okay.
It's when he did all that Frankenstein stuff.
Anyway, okay, built to order cars is the first mess up that Ford's going to try. Dealers with inventory are going to sell cars. So built to order is going to work about for a half a minute. When they go to built to order and the chip shortage is over and all the other manufacturers have cars and inventory sells cars, we've always said that inventory on the ground sells cars, and Ford's standing alone with this dumbass idea that they're going to have built to order cars and market share. All of a sudden, Farley's going to be in front of another stockholders meeting, and he's going to feel like the Frankenstein monster.
Hang on. You know how you make build to order work? Just give a discount. So you buy it for X on MSRP. Max, you give me a discount to pre-order it. I'm pre-ordering all day long. I get the right car, guaranteed price all day long. Just for the record, I had to pre-order the last two vehicles I owned to get what I wanted.
You're not the typical American buyer, Sean. Let's be totally honest about it.
I bought a Bronco and a new Raptor, and both of them to get the processes and what I wanted, I had to pre-order. Now, would I love to have had one on Geno's lot? Of course, but I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, but I'm going to sell you.
I disagree. I think inventory sells cars.
It does.
It does.
Geno,
Well, there's a key market sector. These EV buyers, they'll pre-order. There is a market sector, and for models that have always been high demand, low supply, like the Raptor, that those consumers are used to that. But let's talk about the masses again. If I am, knock on wood here, if I get hit picking somebody up from the school or going to the grocery store and total my car, I cannot wait 6 weeks to 6 months to replace that vehicle. I need something now, which is what the majority of consumers in this country are facing.
Yeah. So Jim, perfect examples. When Audi didn't have enough inventory back in the 2009, 2010, 2011, we used to write up orders all the time. But if there was a car that was similar to or like, when we wrote up that order, we wrote it up for 100 basis points, and we wrote it up at full MSRP plus, holding on the trade. And then a customer, we had a car that was blue with brown interior instead of blue with black interior. We said, but you could take this car today, and I can save you $25 a month or $30 a month. People were buying it right then and there.
Because we sell the cars we want to
in
most showrooms.
Yeah. So inventory is, it's always been key. Like, right now I have eight cars at our Volkswagen store there in Brandon, and we have 7 cars here at our Lakeland store. We have 15 cars between 2 stores. Like, we need cars. Like, when we get cars, we're going to sell them. And if somebody wants to do built to order cars, they're going to get their, taken to the cleaners, because us guys with cars are going to be selling them like crazy. So yeah, Mr. Farley will definitely be sitting in a board meeting again in front of stockholders, explaining why his market share just got, evaporated by Chevrolet, right?
Exactly, because the manufacturer that's got the cars on the ground, and I
don't want to sell. I don't want to sell.
Let me tell you who's going to win. Let me tell you who's going to win. You know who's going to win? Stellantis. Well, General Motors has the same dumbass quality of management as Ford.
Yeah, well, Jim, I don't want to sell 401k deals. I don't want to sell deals for the future. I can't sell whether it's a gas parking space or an electric vehicle parking space. I can sell a car that's actually physically here.
Right.
Like, that's what I want. Like, we've been running this for so long, it's exhausting. We're in 2022, and I'm thinking, man, that boat caught on fire. I had an acid rain problem with the Volkswagens. Those cars had to go all the way back to Mexico to get redone. Like, when is this going to end? Like, that's why I keep saying, like, if anyone's worried about them going direct to model, with our consumers, they can't even give us cars right now. Could you imagine having to deal with all those Karens waiting for their beautiful Honda Odyssey that isn't going to show up on time? Like, we are like the front line.
A whole army of Karens.
I'm serious though. Think about it. Like, we have to deal with that all the time. We're the ones that have to take all that pressure and that screaming and yelling when their car doesn't show up. There's some really nice cars on that boat that got caught on fire. People were waiting years for those cars. Do you think that any of those folks from that manufacturer are picking up the phone? No, we're the ones dealing with all that. So when I say, can they get stuff done? I don't know if they can. Like, you see,
that's the other part. They need people for
the distribution system.
Algorithm can't do that.
The distribution system is going to be left to people like Ford Direct and Shift. Think about that a second. I mean, Stellantis just dictated one of the worst vendor choices in the world, and said that none of their dealers can use any vendor but this dumbass clue impaired vendor. I mean, all of a sudden we're starting to tell dealers how they have to run existing franchises. Yeah. And that's the way they're going to run their franchises.
You know what's going to happen? The dealers are going to kill it in its womb. They're going to go, it doesn't work. And then the next board meeting comes by and they say, your digital retail tool is garbage. We don't want to see your trade-in tool. We don't care about your search engine marketing because it doesn't work either. And then we will literally get together and incessantly just drive that train over and over and over and over and over again on them until they give up. Because it happens on sales floors too, right? you try to say, well, everybody needs to be use the driver's license scanner to go into the CRM. And that lasts about 6 weeks to 6 months. And then next thing you know, everybody's doing it their own funny way. And you're trying to figure out what your floor count was. You need Jim Ziegler to show up to do all the training. He's out there with a bullhorn and some walkie-talkies trying to grab people, right?
And balloons and gorillas. Got to have balloons and gorillas.
But like, that's what happens. Like, so I'm not overly worried about when they try to dictate a specific vendor, because I think that's a short period of time. Right, because
that's the vendors. That's their thinking. That's how they think they're going to sell cars.
But how long did it take General Motors dealers to get rid of CDK for websites? Like, that took a long time. A long time. And, they even, in the beginning, there were savvy dealers where we would run vanity sites and bury that OEM mandated. So yes, I took their website, but I stripped it out and I buried it, and I still had a fully compliant website, only advertising General Motors parts of vehicles and services.
We deal with it every day, Jennifer. You're exactly right.
But after 4 years, they even came back and said, if you don't drop your, Auto Trader listings, and this was back in 2014, right? If you don't drop your Auto Trader listings on the CDK website, guess what you lose co-op on?
Co-op.
So I just canceled Auto Trader.
Yeah, and I see that every day. But now the manufacturers spinning off separate brands, the Bronco, the Lightning, all of a sudden every car is its own brand. I said this, Sergio started all this when they bought Chrysler. When Sergio bought Chrysler, and I heard the name Sergio, I was thinking he was going to be making Clint Eastwood movies, but that was Sergio Leone. It was another Sergio. But anyway, I got distracted there a second. But when Sergio spun off Ram as its own, Ram trucks, and no longer Dodge trucks, now they're Ram. And the reason that he did that is at the time they were in trouble and they were thinking about selling Ram and Jeep, the only two franchises Stellantis has that have value, Ram and Jeep. They were thinking about selling those to the Chinese, so you had to make a separate brand out of it. That's what I'm seeing here with Ford and Farley saying, hey, we're going to spin off EVs. We're going to spin off Bronco. We're going to spin off Lightning. And you don't think General Motors is watching, Geno?
Don't get me started with Mary, please.
Mary,
GM is going to be bankrupt within 10 years.
Oh, yeah. There are many, many qualified, intelligent women in the car business. And I don't think a manufacturer should be run by a figurehead. There's a better selection.
They're all becoming politicians now. You know that. They're very disconnected from what's happening on the ground level. They a lot of folks that they just don't understand the plight we're going through when if they actually came to these facilities and looked around and said, look, I got to feed all these people that work for us, all the people you told me to hire, the BDC agents, the sales managers, the general sales managers, the salespeople, the service advisors, and you've only given me 8 cars.
Yeah.
How's that work?
It doesn't.
It doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. I mean, okay, so you took out the steering wheel warmer. Okay, that saved a chip.
All right.
Max, what's your thoughts over there? I know you're chomping at the bit to get on.
So listen, I think none of us have a crystal ball, right? And nobody knows whether they're going to go direct to consumer, whether they're going to succeed.
Yes, they are.
Fine, but we don't know if you're going to succeed or fail. But to Geno's point, somebody has to service these cars. Somebody has to store these cars. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of dealers are not that good at fixed ops, right? And this is the time to really get your stuff together, right? Because there are millions of cars, internal combustion cars on the road that are out of warranty that are currently going anywhere except for a car dealership to get their repairs and maintenance done. So that's avenue number one. Avenue number two, there are part sales. And I know Jim doesn't, agree with me, but you got to sell parts online, right? You got to sell parts on Amazon. You got to sell parts everywhere. right? And if you really want to master digital retail, you have to start with parts, not with cars, right? And the last point is that also you have to, and maybe it's a self-serving point, but you also have a viable F&I department that can actually tie all of this together, right? You can sell F&I products that will have a retention element built in that will drive your customers back to your own service department. I'll give you a perfect example. If you're not doing dealer-owned prepaid maintenance, shame on you. You've given up your own service retention voluntarily, right? And again, shame on you for not understanding this, right? If it's a Honda dealership, right, and you sell a Honda prepaid maintenance, you give the license to your customer to go to any Honda dealer in America or even Canada, right? Sell your own, tie them back to your service department, build a relationship, right? Worry about today. I'm not worried about 2030 and if they're going to go electric, if they're going to go direct to consumer. I might not be here in 2030.
We're not talking 2030. We're talking 2022.
Right. I'm worried about today.
So
today,
we're talking about today, 22. We're
right.
talking about
today,
today.
you need people in your service department. Today, you need to sell parts online.
Farley had the meeting this week, not 10 years from now.
Right. And today you need to maximize your opportunities in F&I. And I think that's what dealers need to concentrate on. And if they can master all these things, it doesn't matter what's going to happen in 2030.
So Max, I agree with focusing on your profit centers and paying attention to where you're generating revenue, but I don't think that that's anything that is driven by a market condition. I think that's just being a good operator. Like the fact that there are still people out there that don't even know their service absorption metric, like that is insane to me. But again, right, my brain works differently. I can't get rid of that comptroller hat. And so the understanding what drives the revenue. So if your inventory, and this is the part, it's so funny. I've got a Toyota Volvo location in Pennsylvania, and we started working together in the spring last year. And I said, I can't come train your team because you only have like 12 Toyotas on the ground and like, 2 Volvos, and you're in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. I don't know if we're going to be selling those anywhere near. Let's do a vehicle acquisition. Let's stock your used car lot. It doesn't make sense to invest in that training with your team if they don't have anything to deliver. So the same thing Max is saying about your parts and your service and your finance departments, why don't you take a look at that, bring that financial statement out and look at it differently? Not just about what does that bottom line say, but where can I squeeze the juice when the person I have to send that to on the 5th of every month is not in my corner? Because it feels like the OEMs are not in our corners.
They've never been in our corners. And look at this. One thing you got to remember is dealers have to sell cars above MSRP because they don't have enough to be profitable and to stay in business. Dealers don't have enough inventory to stay in business. Now, okay, we have a chip shortage. Maybe that's politicians' fault. Maybe who cares whose fault it is? It's real. It's the situation. They can't build enough cars for dealers to remain profitable. How much we're charging over MSRP, Farley is not the one to decide that. And for dealers, you, above all, need to read Ariel Velasquez's article. You need to revolt. Dealers, you need to jump up and say, hey, wait a second. You're going to do what? You're going to kill the franchise system. And where is the NADA? I am so sick of the NADA limping off the battlefield defeated. And then, it's like I think Putin told Barack Obama that you shit on the chessboard and declared you won. Excuse me. You shit on the chessboard and declared yourself a winner. No, excuse me. NADA, I'm so sick of us losing the battles. This is the battle NADA should be fighting, and I don't see them anywhere on the battlefield.
Well, hey, Jim, why don't we talk about some positive things that we can do? Why don't you,
okay.
Max has a pretty good idea. Why don't you turn your if you're in a place that can that can get the right electrical grid? Why don't you turn your store into an EV charging station? And why don't you take that EV charging moment? Because even on a fast charger,
let's talk about the positive thing.
If it even on a fast charger, it takes anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. You have a captive audience for 15 to 30 minutes. You want to talk about being able to pitch either trading them out of their vehicle or selling them an extended service contract, dent and ding, paint protection, any of those things, the maintenance. Listen, EV cars are not inexpensive to keep. I decided mistakenly the last EV car not to get the Audi Care, which was a big mistake because I was like, what am I going to need? There's no oil changes. What do I need it for? $30 part, $300 labor would have been covered under Audi Care, right?
And to your point, Geno, Google business profiles now include the ability to say if you have a charging station on site, right? So reach out to what the consumer's needs are. My final point on this, though, is don't ever underestimate the dealer. They're great people. They're wired in the community. They're survivors.
Yeah.
They typically employ a lot of people. Everyone wants to give them a hard time. A lot of my good friends are car dealers. I love them. They care about the community, and they will adapt before they'll die. But more importantly, to your point, they should stand up for the things so they don't get pushed around. But don't ever underestimate the car dealer. They're great people that will learn how to survive and thrive regardless of what they change in the franchise laws.
Exactly. Jennifer?
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like I've been doing that for better half of my career, adapting to the changes, being GM heavy through the last recession in the state of Michigan. Like, there weren't many dealers that had a harder road to hoe than those GM stores in Michigan back in 08 to 2010. And so I definitely think, like, just piggybacking off of the follow-up to Max, we need to come together and make our voices heard, but at the same time, you got to do a little CYA. And if you're not analyzing your departments and your own business's profitability, and this is what was it, less than 3% of general managers have fixed ops experience. If you don't have that experience, that's fine. Have someone on your team that can help you analyze and grow those additional revenue centers to offset what you're losing in your new car business. Don't wait for somebody else to decide your destiny.
A great tool that we've implemented at our store is called Update Promise. And what we've done with Update Promise, it's literally a CRM for the service department. This is the first time I've been in the business where I can track every single activity, from service technician MPIs to videos being sent from your service advisors to menu presentations to follow-up and life cycle. It's all in there, and it's awesome because you're literally, especially for those 3% that actually know the fixed ops and the other 97% who don't, you can do an analogy or you can do a cross-reference between the sales side to the service side with Update Promise, because it's literally like a CRM for the service department. It's awesome. We built all of our pay plans off of it now. We track activities, we track engagements, we track revenue retention, things that have, you look at in the autopsy, which is the financial statement. We're looking at on Mondays, we're looking at on Tuesdays, we're looking at on Thursdays, we're looking at on Fridays, and we're coaching guys and gals on how to do better presentations, on how to use the tool better, on how to have that pitch with the customer before they leave when you're out there with an iPad doing a VCI walk around. Like, if you really want to work on something that's, your fixed department and getting to that absorption where it doesn't matter what happens with the variable side as much, that's where you need to really lean in on. That would be the keynote that I would tell you. Update Promise or something like that. I don't know what else is out there that's like
an incredible idea. That's an absolutely incredible idea. But I'm sitting here thinking, let's go back to 1920s. And here's Henry Ford personally driving around the country in his Model A or Model T, whatever it was. And he's visiting these repair shops and saying, you need to have a Ford dealership. And he was shaking hands, making lifetime commitments with these people. And some of these people, fourth generation, are still in business, right? Here's Henry Ford. And now all of a sudden, we got Jim Farley saying, hey, we're going to cut the dealers out and create a separate brand on the EVs. The ship came in, the gold mine, we struck gold, we got the mother lode right here, and we're cutting the dealers out. Now, we got the NADA convention coming up in about 3 weeks. And you Ford dealers out there are going to be able to face these manufacturer people down. You're going to say, hey, we're here. We are the villagers and you are the Frankenstein monster. We're going to chase your ass up the hill. We got the NADA convention coming up. And if you dealers have any testicular fortitude, if you've got the testicular fortitude to face these manufacturers down, and not just Ford's the only one that said it out loud.
Wait, can I call it ovarian audacity then? Like
testicular,
because I feel like sometimes mine is a little bit harsher.
Wait a minute. Ovarian audacity?
I mean,
that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, if you got the testicular fortitude or ovarian audacity to face these manufacturers down, and not just Ford's the only one that said it out loud. The other ones are thinking it. Okay, so understand, we are at a crucial point in the industry right now where the manufacturers are finally making that muscle I've been talking about for 20 years. They've got vendors that are allies that you thought were your partners. Shit, quit it. You got some vendors you thought were your partners actually involved in the conspiracy. Ford Direct is going to be your dealer body. Quit it. So anyway, as we wind down the last 4 minutes, what do you got to say here, Sean?
I think that the OEMs have the right to try new things, right? But the dealers can get in their ear too. At the end of the day, the OEMs aren't stupid. They're not going to cut their supply chain off completely. They might try things. We've seen this before, right, Jim? We've seen this.
Yeah, remember the Ford Auto Collection when they tried to own their own car dealerships back in 2000? And I was working with the dealers on the outskirts. It was like the British, in the Revolutionary War, the British soldiers had to wear bright red outfits and march down the middle of the street. The settlers hid behind rocks and camouflage and shit and shot them.
There's a reason why the dealers are so successful. They listen to their consumers and they work. I think you're going to find the pendulum will swing back the other way a little bit too. I don't mind them trying to see how to compete with Tesla, but they're trying to reduce the cost of units sold, right? Now, are they going too far? It seems like it. But never underestimate the dealer and the relationship to the OEM. They make some silly ideas, but if they, if you're gang up, if you talk to them, they will listen. Because at the end of the day, they still got to sell cars.
They still got to sell cars. Built to order is a dumbass idea. I go on record as saying dumbass idea, And I don't say that they're foolish. I say they're nincompoops. What do you think, Jennifer?
I'm just sitting here shocked about how you've actually cursed 5 times on the show today, like real curse words. So I'm a little bit.
I really don't do that, and
you don't do that at all.
I dropped the big one, the big F-bomb. I didn't mean to.
Debbie's going to be pissed.
I'm going to go edit that out of every one of the replays.
Ultimately, the way that I feel about it is that, we don't sell cars. We sell relationships. That's what we do as dealers. We sell the before, during, and after. And that's something I don't see the OEM ever being able to compete with.
Yeah, okay, that wraps it up. Max, you got about 2 minutes now. I don't know if you can do it.
I do. I can. Listen, it's a perfect storm, right? They got the electric cars to break franchise laws. They got the direct to consumer to sell at one price because dealers sell over MSRP. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but unless dealers switch to one price at some time in the very near future, they're going to be digging their own grave, because as a consumer, I can go to Tesla and get my car for MSRP. I don't care if the MSRP is high or low. All I care about is the fact that I don't have to haggle. I don't need to waste time. So it's a hard reality to swallow for car dealers that for 100 years were negotiating on cars. But this is the new reality, because these consumers are trained by using Amazon, by using Netflix, by using Uber, by using any digital retail tool where you don't have to negotiate on anything. So you need to understand that one price is the only way if you want to transact online and if you want to compete with direct-to-consumer model. That's all I got.
Okay, very good. Geno, you got about a minute and a
So
half.
the one thing I don't think any of us have talked about the entire time, especially talking about the dealers going direct, is they literally have to make a product that people want to pay MSRP for all the time. So if they don't come up with the right product that people love, they could fail miserably, like miserably. Like we've all seen the car that they got all hyped up about that just went away, right? I was there. I was working at a Pontiac GMC Buick store when we had a Pontiac, and they came out with the G8. Does everybody remember the G8?
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to say Aztec.
No, well, the
Aztec.
but the G8 came out, and that was a Holden car from Australia, and it was a really nice car. It had a tuned down Corvette engine in it. But the moment it came out with a $1,500 rebate, and I go, Pontiac's in trouble. And within a year, Pontiac was gone.
I remember when Audi built cars that ran around the yard by themselves.
Yeah, well, that's a feature. It's a feature.
Audi was the first manufacturer to build self-driving cars.
That's right. It was a feature.
It's a port added feature.
But just think about that, though. There's a lot that they want to keep us going for because they only make money when they print cars and print parts, right? They don't make money by having us build buildings. They don't make money for having us advertise. They make money when they sell us the cars and when they sell us the parts to sell to other people. So if they can't sell us enough cars because they want to go to these built-to-order scenarios and they have to stand on their laurels, which is you have to make an outstanding product that people want to buy over and over and over again.
And we'll wait for.
I want to apologize to the audience. I want to apologize to the audience. I have had a strict policy that we don't curse on my shows, and here I dropped the big F-bomb myself. I apologize. It's not that I'm against that. I use that language sometimes in my personal conversations, but it's unprofessional to do it on a broadcast, and I apologize. I didn't mean to do it. It just slipped out. And I don't do that. I tell my co-panelists not to do that. I did it myself, and I apologize. Okay, we're at the end of the show. This has been a fiery show, and it was meant to be a fiery show. I want to thank Geno Walsh and Sean Stapleton, our guest panelists, Max Zanan, the Mad Russian, and Jennifer Briggs, one of the brightest women in the car business. Thank you. Everybody wave goodbye to the audience, folks.
Thank you.
Ah!